You started Australian Conservatives 2.5 years ago. Why have you now decided to dissolve it?
Well, when circumstances change, a wise man changes their mind. And when I started the Australian Conservatives 2.5 years ago, we were in an entirely different political paradigm. I left the party that I've been a member of for over 30 years because Malcolm Turnbull was dragging them in a direction which was really unhealthy. They were a pale imitation of sort of Labor and the Greens, and politics had become an echo chamber. And my concern then was that it would give rise to demands for an alternative voting vehicle, and some of them wouldn't be very healthy. So I formed the Australian Conservatives to help drag the Liberals back to where I think they should have been, to give Conservative voices a legitimate outing and a credible and principled alternative. And the reality is, the moment Scott Morrison became Prime Minister, our numbers internally and our membership started to change. And they expressed confidence in the Liberal Party once again. And we persevered, thinking that after the election things might be different. But the reality is Scott Morrison has reclaimed the ground which we were seeking to stake as our own. I'm happy about that, but it also means we've been mugged by the political reality that we don't have the electoral support we need to continue.
Your membership skyrocketed at one point when Malcolm Turnbull was Prime Minister, I think to 22,000. How much did it drop by when Scott Morrison took over as leader?
Yeah, roughly the numbers are about 22,000 was our peak, and yesterday when I emailed our members, our financial members, it was about 8,000. So it's still a substantive political organisation when it comes to minor parties. But ultimately it doesn't translate at the ballot box. We were no longer extreme enough for some of the unhappy voters. We weren't niche enough for those who were motivated by single issues. And to be frank, as a Conservative alternative to the Liberals, that ground was reclaimed by Scott Morrison, who won an extraordinary election, I have to say. I certainly didn't expect the Coalition to win that election. I don't know too many others that did. But full marks to them, and I want to back them in and make them as good a government as they possibly can be.
At the election, your support in some states was lower than Fraser Anning's. Was this disheartening for you, given the time and the sweat that you'd put into your party over the past couple of years?
There's an understatement, but it's not just about disheartening for me. It was disheartening for our candidates, who were fantastic. They were credible and principled and worked very hard. Our myriad of volunteers, the money that went into it. We really strove to run a professional political outfit. And to be beaten by, Fraser Anning and his party, we were beaten by the stoners, as I call them, the hemp party, the vegans, the animal justice people. They beat us too. And, the thousands of emails I've received since the election, so many of them contained this rhetoric that I'm a member of your party, Cory. I had to vote for the Coalition first because I didn't want Bill Shorten to get in, and then we voted for you. And that was disheartening too, because we were running only in the Senate, and it just said to me that our message was lost, and no matter how hard we worked at it, it wasn't going to capture those who were seeking the shrill histrionics, and the regular Conservative voter was more attracted back to the Coalition.
Will you rejoin the Liberal Party now?
I haven't thought about that. I know there's been media speculation, and there's been no discussion between the Prime Minister and myself. Well, in actual fact, the last 4 weeks I've only been focused about the future of the party. My future and what I do will start to now be, I guess, feature into my consideration with my family and others. But I can tell you I haven't had a conversation with the South Australian division of the Liberal Party or anything else. What I'm motivated to do is to pursue 3 policy goals. If I can do that while I'm still in politics, that'd be great. But we'll see how we go.
And those policy goals are nuclear energy and freedom of speech.
Yeah, there are 2 of them. Firstly, the EPBC Act is up for a review, 20-year review this year. And that's the act that basically prohibits nuclear power in any way, shape or form in this country. And I think that's crazy, considering what the rest of the world is doing and the demands for emissions-free power, if that motivates people. So I'd like to play a part in that. I do think that our freedoms are under assault by successive governments, and last Parliament I introduced a Protected Freedoms Act, which basically said governments have to justify in every piece of legislation why they are taking away or encroaching upon the freedoms that we've traditionally enjoyed. And thirdly, it's a bit of a niche issue, but it's South Australian, is some of our commercial fishers lost a bit of their quota because of government decisions, and there was no recompense for that. And I just think that's like taking away a property right and brings uncertainty into an industry that's very important to my state. So I'd like to pursue that, see if we can rectify it and protect the livelihoods of the commercial fishermen
in terms of
my great state, but also around the country.
In terms of your political future, though, why wouldn't you return to the Liberals? It was your home, as you said, for 30-odd years, and your worst enemies in the party have gone. Malcolm Turnbull's gone, Julie Bishop's gone, Christopher Pyne, long-term political rival, has gone. Why wouldn't you rejoin this party?
Sharri, you're underestimating the number of enemies I've made there over the years. I mean, you know, there's legions of them. Look, it may be an option, I don't know, but it's you know, not my priority. I don't really want to immerse myself in party politics. I want to immerse myself in the policy outcomes that I think are important, but I also want to support the coalition as much as I can. They won an extraordinary victory. I think the choice they put towards the Australian people, for the Australian people, was so opposed to the socialist nonsense from the Labor Party that they deserve every element of support.
So when
there's
Parliament,
so much of their agenda that I support.
When Parliament returns, though, the week after next, in what capacity will you sit in the Senate?
Well, I'll either be, I'll probably be an independent, but that may change, of course, if you know, people want to engage in conversations with me. But you know, ultimately, I'm not shopping around for a political vehicle. That's you know, yesterday's stuff for me. I really will go back there, and I'll take some time to contemplate how best I can be effective, and I'll do that in consultation with people that I respect, that I admire, and make the best interests of the country. And it may be, Sharri, I'm not preempting this, but it may be that the circumstances are it might be best for me to leave Parliament in the next 6 months or something like that. Because you know, someone else might come in with fresher ideas. I'm really unresolved, and so I will turn
so you're
my
considering
mind
quitting
to that
politics
literally from today.
You're considering quitting politics altogether?
I think ultimately, you know, after I'll be 14 years into Parliament by June of next year, and I will be 50. I think that's a pretty good time to consider what contribution you want to make going forward. But as I said, I've got these 3 policy areas I'd like to pursue. I want to be constructive and work with the government, whether that's as part of the government or as an independent. I'll do whatever I think is in the best interest of the country.
Some have suggested that there's a case for you joining the Liberal Party as the new Conservative figurehead, if you like, now that Tony Abbott has left Parliament. Is this something that has been put to you?
Well, I'll say that's very kind. I haven't had that discussion with anybody. This is the first I've heard about it. But in the end, I've tried to be as straight with people as I can right through my political career. I've tried to speak clearly, not get caught in the sophistry of politics, and to actually do what I think is the right thing. Now, sometimes it's a very painful experience. It's painful for your friends, it's painful for your family, it's painful for you personally. But doing the right thing is important to me, and that's why I never want to act in haste. You know, you've got to contemplate the consequences of everything you do, and I'm heartened by the people that have reached out and said, you know, thank you for the role you've played, and whatever that is, the annals of history will judge it one way or another. Just
lastly, did you have fundraising left over from your party, and what happens to it?
Yeah, there is some funds that are still there, but they're being used at the moment to conclude our obligations. We've got some audit obligations, some accounting, some outstanding bills and rents and things like that. And then at the end of that process, I think it'll probably be July when it's wrapped up, whatever surplus funds are there are under the constitutions of the not-for-profit should go to a like-minded organisation. It doesn't have to be a political organisation, but one that shares their aims and goals. So we'll see what the wash-up is there, but it's not going to be a monumental amount of money. You know, it probably wouldn't pay for Labor's unhappy, you know, lost party on election eve.
Cory Bernardi, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Sharri, and you too.